If you're thinking about doing IVF or IUI overseas, then this video is for you. This video is geared towards Canadians, but really can apply to anybody who's looking to conceive overseas. I do specifically talk about InGene's IVF in Mexico, but you can apply this content to almost any IVF facility overseas. If this video is helpful for you, please don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you have any other questions or any other topics that you would like me to do a video on, please leave a comment and let me know. There were so many wonderful people who helped me on this journey, and I would really like to do the same. There is no guide or somebody to really sit down with you and walk you through everything at these clinics, especially if you're coming from abroad. Not only helpful for Canadians, but anybody who's been struggling to conceive and is looking to do IVF or IUI or any type of fertility treatment that's not in their home country. I'm going to break down this video as best as I can and organize it into sections that I think are easiest to follow. I know that when you're starting off on this journey, especially when you're going international, it can be very confusing. So I really hope that this video is going to help you and that it's easy to follow and easy to understand. And if it is or isn't, please let me know. I am also on Instagram and TikTok. I'll put all that information in my bio, but the handle is a mom and a mother. I would love to see you there, and if you have any questions or comments or you would like to see anything specific, please just reach out to me on any of these platforms. Just a quick background about who I am. My name is Jenica, and my wife and I had 1 failed IVF cycle here in Canada and 4 failed IUI cycles. After our very first and last IVF cycle in Canada, we decided that we were going to try again, but we wanted to go overseas. And there was a few reasons why we chose to go international, but one overarching motivator really pushed us to seal the deal. One of the biggest pulls in international IVF clinics is that you get multiple attempts for the same price as one attempt in your home country. I am 30 years old and I don't have a complicated health history. I did have a uterine fibroid that was removed before our first IVF cycle here in Canada. Other than that, I don't have PCOS, and my periods are pretty normal. And my reproductive system overall is pretty solid. Why we chose Mexico? Well, it was the most familiar place to us. We've been there quite a few times as a couple. I've been there 9 times, well now 10 after this last cycle. So I do feel the most comfortable there. I did have consults and I got information from other countries abroad. I ended up doing a spreadsheet with the cost breakdown, what you get, what you don't get. Things like PGTA are included, additional testing, the consultation fee. I did a whole spreadsheet to really help us with our decision, and at the end of the day, it was Mexico. And we decided to use InGenes in Mexico, that's INGENES, because they do have 9 facilities across Mexico. Not all of them are created equal. Some of them you can't do a transfer and a retrieval in the same spot. You have to go to different locations. But overall, it's so nice to have that option to be able to go to 9 different places if you have family, or if you have a cheaper way of getting to a certain location over the other, then you can pick that location that fits you best. Okay, so let's say that you've chose InGenes in Mexico. One of my biggest pieces of advice is to join a Facebook group that is tailored to your fertility clinic. So for us, it was the InGenes Facebook group. It's pretty simple. There was also subgroups. So we got assigned to Tijuana. So there was InGenes Tijuana Facebook group. So I signed up, or I joined those groups right away. And there's everybody in the group is just like you. They have very similar questions, very similar journeys, and you can use the search function and just whatever types of questions you have, it's probably been asked before, and if it hasn't, then there's all this opportunity to ask folks. There's suggestions, opinions, advice, how-tos, what do I do, can somebody help me, can somebody PM me. Phenomenal option for support. There's also Reddit groups as well. So I would highly encourage you, if you're not on Facebook or Reddit, to jump on that. So you've decided to go with InGenes in Mexico. Now what? You go onto their website and you request a consultation. InGenes does do free consultations, but some other IVF clinics abroad do charge you. I've seen some, only one that comes to mind right now is a $250 US consultation fee. I understand it's still taking up the doctor's time, and they do want you as a patient, and most of the times they will deduct that from your final cost. But with InGenes, it was free. And with InGenes, because they have 9 different locations, if you are gearing towards a very specific location, you must include that in your initial consultation email, because we didn't specify what location we wanted, and we were pretty open to going anywhere, because at this point we hadn't really narrowed down the travel costs yet for each clinic. But we were assigned Tijuana, and Tijuana is like a mega center. It is the most popular location. You can do absolutely everything at the Tijuana location. And so we had our consult. It was over Zoom, and we were assigned Dr. Lourdes Hurtado. She did a presentation on what the whole IVF cycle looks like at their clinic. And then she took a health history and then told us what she would need from us going forward. And then we had ample opportunity to ask her questions. After we were done with her and her portion, she then transferred us to a coordinator where we could ask everything about pricing and contracts, and how much time we would get to come up with the money, and any very nitty gritty specific questions that had to do. So we ended up choosing the BEC4 program, which is 4 egg retrievals and 4 transfers in total. You get 3 years to complete your cycles. And if a live birth with 72 hours of life is not achieved, you get a full refund. You cannot bank all your retrievals in a specific time period and then use your transfers later. They're still a business, right? Who wants to make the most amount of money as they can. So they're hoping that it's successful on the first try, and they hope that you want it to be successful on the first try. So they'll only do 1 retrieval, and then they'll follow up with a transfer until you're successful. And my wife and I did want to do reciprocal IVF, which is where you use one person's eggs and then the other person's uterus to carry the pregnancy. And amazingly with this program is that we could go back and forth. So if the first time we did a retrieval, one of our eggs cycles weren't the best, we didn't get a lot of good quality eggs, and the next time we do it, we would be able to use the other person's eggs and do a transfer after that. There's also a plethora of other package you can choose from. If you don't want 4 cycles, you can do 3, 2, you can do 1. There are other options where you can go cheaper. The way to make it cheaper is if you don't do a money back guarantee. Obviously it is more expensive to do a money back guarantee, but if you choose, if you're just looking for a one-time attempt, then there are other packages out there that are much cheaper. And you get a certain amount of time to come up with the money and to pay it to their system. It's usually about 10 days, about 10 to 12 days. This was a problem for us because we needed to pull from investments, and that took a long time. So we did ask for an extension, and that was granted like that. It was no problem. We had asked for a full month instead of 10 days, and they said, yep, no problem. I was like, oh, well, we could have probably asked for more. So the price and the timeline are negotiable. Yes, price is negotiable. We were given a quote with PGTA testing, which is where they test your embryos to check for genetic abnormalities, and without the PGTA testing. They also run specials around Mother's Day, Valentine's Day, Christmas, major holidays. We weren't around any of those, so we did just get like a basic price. So really at the end of the day, no 2 people pay the same. It's pretty wild. It's not like Canada and the US where they have set prices and they're on their website. Everybody gets a very detailed, specific price quote for their packages. So it is pretty wild. It is sort of treated as like a sales approach. You can, as high or low as they go, you can also counter back with a price that would be reasonable for both parties. Also, a little tidbit of advice before you make the payment. It is a credit card system. Make sure you let your bank know ahead of time. You can also ask your bank if they trust this provider. Then that way you're guaranteed for that money to go through and be processed without any issues and without getting more processing fees than is needed. So you've paid and you've signed up with the clinic. Now what? Well, do you need to order sperm? If you have a husband or a male partner who's providing the sperm, then obviously this won't apply to you. So getting sperm shipped right to the clinic from another country is a logistical nightmare. We tried this because we already had 2 vials of sperm that were sitting at our home IVF clinic, and I did go through the process of trying to get them shipped directly to the clinic, but with the permits and the lawyers and the shipping and the handling and the price was just outrageous. So we did have to look at another option. Luckily, with the InGenes packages, you get donor eggs and donor sperm included. So these are national bank, so these are Mexican donors. That's one thing that you'll want to keep in mind. At the end of the day, my wife and I wanted a healthy baby, so we did forego all the criteria that we initially were looking for. We wanted specific height and educational background and certain ethnicity. We ended up just having to release a little bit of that control because we did get to use our eggs, and you do get to find out if the donor is they only accept healthy donors, but you do know that the donor is healthy. You get to know their height, their weight, their ethnicity. You don't get any pictures or any background information, so you have no idea what they look like. And I know that's a biggie for a lot of people, so it's just something that you'll have to sit with and figure out if that's something that would fit with yourself or yours and your partner's dream. There is a way of getting around this with the sperm being shipped to the clinic. If you are choosing a clinic that's close to a border like Tijuana, you can stay the night at an Airbnb on the US side. So for us, we went to San Diego. So you could have stayed the night or a couple nights in an Airbnb, and then get your vials of sperm shipped to that Airbnb, because getting it from like something like Fairfax, Cairo Bank shipped within the US is no problem. And then you literally just walk the tank across the border, or you get a driver or a cab, Uber, whatever it is, and they can drive you and your tank across the border. And then you can just literally walk it into the clinic. So there is that option. The next thing you want to do is you want to get your protocol. So your doctor will set up and design and craft a protocol that's very specific to your needs after they collect a health history. They will essentially write a script, a protocol on how they're going to go about treating you and having successful conception at their clinic. With our doctor, Dr. Hurtado, she was pretty new with satellite patients, so that one was a hard one to try to relay that we needed that protocol ASAP. So what I ended up doing is using my previous protocol from Canada. It was still on their online portal system, and it was so easy to read. It was all in English, and I was very familiar with it. So I ended up printing that out and just following exactly what they required of me before I started treatment, and getting those things done and getting them sent to Mexico before we started. After your doctor requests the initial blood testing and you get them the results, the next biggest thing that's going to come up is stimming, or stims for short. So the process of stimming or stimulation is when your ovaries get stimulated by fertility medications in order to grow and be ready for a retraction or a retrieval. We decided to stim at home. The package includes stimulation, so if you wanted to fly down right away and you wanted to do everything down there and just not do anything at home and just make it easier on yourself and just do everything at the clinic, then that is 100% an option, because that whole stimulation part is included in your package. You do have to pay extra for medication when you're down there. So this big reason why we wanted to stim at home is, honestly, it was cheaper. You have to stim for about, it varies, but it's usually about 9 days to 2 weeks. So we couldn't take the extra 2.5 weeks to do stimulation down in Mexico. We couldn't take that off work. We have a dog, lives at home, etc. We just wanted to fly down for the transfer. So we ended up stimming at home in Edmonton, Canada. Okay, so this is one of the biggest questions I get asked on the Facebook groups is, how do you stim in Canada with being a satellite patient overseas? And I do have specific tidbits and advice on what clinics you could pick from, what doctors offer satellite patient services here in Edmonton, but I'm not going to go over those in the video. If you want that specific information, please reach out to me. I do have that, and I'm more than willing to share that with you. The first thing that you'll need to do, which I already mentioned, is get your protocol. Second is you want to set up an appointment with your family doctor or go to a walk-in clinic. You want to share with them that this is what you're doing, and this is the blood work and the additional testing that you need to get started. Unfortunately, my family doctor wasn't as pumped about using the Alberta healthcare system to basically fund the tests that I would need to send to Mexico. So I ended up going to a walk-in clinic, and I really lucked out because I just shared our story briefly, and I was like, these are all the blood tests I need. If you can send me for them, that would be great. And he ended up writing me a requisition for all of them, and I went, and then they were all covered under Alberta healthcare. Now these next two are a little bit trickier, but fear not, they can be done. The next thing you want to do is you want to find a prescribing pharmacist. So what that means is in Mexico, when you start the stimulation, your doctor's going to write you a prescription to start juicing up those ovaries. So you can't just take that prescription and walk into a pharmacist and be like, hi, I need these medications, because this is a Mexico prescription, right? So you need to find a pharmacist who's willing to take that prescription, rewrite it into an American or Canadian prescription, and then you can get it filled, and then you can bill it under your benefits. Luckily, my prescribing pharmacist didn't charge a fee, but some of them do, because it is extra work, and at the end of the day, it's a business, right? Which I think is fair. You could also check those handy Facebook groups and type in your location and see if anybody else has found a prescribing pharmacist. And sometimes it just comes down to calling around, calling and saying like, hey, this is the situation. Do you guys offer this type of service? The next is you want to find a doctor who is willing to take you on as a satellite patient. So with the stimulation process, you're going to need the medications to stimulate your ovaries, but you're also going to need ultrasounds, because you want to make sure that the eggs are growing to the appropriate size. Sorry for my weird throat thing, I'm just getting over a cough. In Edmonton, there's huge price variances with our IVF clinics here. At the end of the day, I ended up going with a doctor who does this on the side. I know that sounds kind of like black market sketchy, but it's not. He is a fertility doctor, and he takes on satellite patients. He is so geared towards helping people create a family that he's not all about the money, which was such a blessing to be able to find him. So he charged a $300 consultation fee, and then it was $250 per scan. We ended up needing 2 scans. At some other clinics, it's just a bare minimum $5,000 administration fee that just gets you started, and then you pay as you go, which is just wild. And that at that point, it defeats the purpose of going overseas to save money. So after you get these ultrasounds, they will give you these scans right away, and then you send them to your Mexico doctor that day, and then they'll resend you a prescription to either increase your meds or to continue on the same meds. And then you just keep going back and forth to get them filled and to whatever your body needs. If you do choose to go with a clinic that accepts satellite patients, this is sort of all-encompassing. They'll rewrite your prescriptions, they'll send you for blood work, they'll do the ultrasound scans, but just don't forget that it's per appointment that they're going to be charging you for, plus a base administration fee. So we went the route of finding a cheaper on the side doctor who's still very qualified and who is a fertility doctor, and then a prescribing pharmacist. At the end of the day, that saved us a boatload of money. Okay, so you've stimmed, your eggs are ready, and you are gearing up for your retrieval, whether you're stimming at home or you're stimming in Mexico. So once we got the go-ahead that our eggs were in prime condition, our doctor gave us the retrieval date. So that was about 5 days in advance that we knew. So it is a little bit anxiety inducing, being like, okay, do I book my flights now? But they will tell you the date. We found flights for very cheap on one of those like flight scanner apps. It was $250 per person, one way. So we flew from Edmonton to San Diego, and then we hired a driver to drive us into Tijuana to stay at our hotel. A little bit of a hiccup when we got down there. We ended up having to stim for an extra 4 days, which was fine. The biggest thing was the boredom. There's not a lot to do when you're not staying at a resort, I find, because you're kind of limited on what you can and cannot do while you're going through a medical procedure. So we ended up stimming for 4 extra days, which just added a little bit to our trip, but that was fine. Okay, so we were ready for our transfer, and we did decide to do a fresh transfer because in Canada on our one IVF cycle, we did a frozen transfer. We got our eggs PGTA tested. I had 9 initially, and then long story short, only 2 made it to blast, and 1 was a euploid, which means a healthy, genetically cleared embryo. We did miscarry. So I miscarried before the beta test, so that was considered a chemical miscarriage. So this time we wanted to switch it up. We decided to do a fresh transfer with no testing. However, at this point, if you did opt in for testing, then you would have your retrieval, they would be sent off for testing, and then you can go home. After we had our transfer, we flew home the next day. They do let you fly that same day. Your embryo isn't going anywhere, but we just wanted to chill, take it easy, and then be on our way the next day. And the reason why we left so fast is because honestly the boredom, like I said, like we weren't staying at a resort. There are no resorts in Tijuana. Everything was just kind of getting like old. We were bored out of our minds in the hotel. So we were really looking forward to getting home. And we did have a 9-hour layover in Vegas. My wife's never been to Las Vegas, so that was so much fun. It was a little bit hot, a little bit taxing on the body walking the strip after a retrieval, but honestly we had so much fun, and I wholeheartedly believe that that did contribute to our success. So you're home. All that stress about having to be here and there and making sure everything is just like on time, and it comes to a close. So now a whole new journey opens. Mexico doctor will want to send you for a blood test, which is an HCG blood test, which is just going to test the amount of pregnancy hormone in your blood. This usually happens about 9 days after your transfer. Guiltily, we started testing at home about 4 days, and we started to see a faint positive around 4 days, 5 days. So the doctor said, yep, go get your HCG test. So we ended up phoning Rocket Doctor, which is a amazing online platform that British Columbia and Alberta have. And I know that there are other online health systems that people can access. So that's a great way to be like, hey, I think I'm pregnant. Can you send me for a blood test? Or you can go to your family doctor and just request a blood test. It's pretty simple. Typically, the clinic will want 3 with 48 hours apart so they can see that incline. Oh, obviously 2 outcomes. You're pregnant. Congratulations. You will be staying in contact with your Mexico doctor or your IVF doctor for up to 12 weeks of pregnancy. You are going to be on fertility medications to help keep that embryo there and essentially just have like a very healthy start to your pregnancy. You definitely want to follow your advice of your abroad doctor to the best as you can. If you do have an OB at this point, don't just disregard what your abroad doctor has to say, because actually in the contract they can drop you as a patient for this. So just make sure that you're amicable and reasonable if there's something that you don't want to do or something that you want to add or make a switch. Just always talk to your IVF doctor first. Get their opinion, and then you can also talk to your OB. And then, of course, the second outcome is if you're not pregnant, then you can set up an appointment, an aftercare appointment, and talk about what went wrong and what you can change within your protocol for your very next attempt. These are just some final points that I think are important and that could benefit you. Any medication that you end up buying down there, save the receipts. Save them and submit them to your insurance. You never know if they're going to be able to cover them. We are with Sun Life, so we have to physically mail them in, and they then process whether they can give you a refund or not. Also, in certain countries, you can put these on your tax return and get some of the tax money back, just sort of depending on your tax system and what country you live in. So just keep them just in case. Get your doctor's WhatsApp contact information immediately. The clinics don't really answer their phone. They like to communicate via WhatsApp. That's right from the initial consultation all the way up until 12 weeks of pregnancy. This is the fastest and most effective way to get in contact with the clinic or your doctor. Amazingly, our doctor has kept in contact with us even though I'm well into the care of my OB here in Canada. She just likes to check in to see how I'm feeling and to see how everything's progressing, which is very sweet. I haven't found that here in Canada, so that's another reason why we really loved the overseas process. If you want any other videos, if you want a cost breakdown, how much we spent on the BEC program itself, what our travel costs were, our food costs, or if you want a video on how to save money with prescription medication, I have all those tips and tricks, but I don't want this video to get too long, so please drop a comment. I would be more than happy on getting a series crafted. I hope this was incredibly helpful for you, and I'm wishing you so much love and, of course, a positive outcome on your journey.